Hi, I'm Henry Bennett from YourWelcome, and I'm here today to talk to you about increasing your profit from every booking and overall the power of adding a service layer to your glamping business. Hopefully I can give you some hints and tips about how many of our clients are able to turn an increased profit from adding their service layer. So who are we? So YourWelcome, we've been around since 2014. And we're a smart tablet for short stay accommodation. And by that I mean everything from glamping, which is appropriate for you today, through to service accommodation, Airbnbs and vacation rentals. We work with a broad range of clients. Our physical tablet, which we give away with every subscription, is installed in over 18,000 properties. And it's the most used guest app globally, with over 60,000 guests a month using our tablet. The tablet itself is installed in the property, so if you're running a glamping business, you'd install it inside your glamping unit, and it acts as an informational and transactional portal during the stay. So this enables you to have contactless check-in, to do surveys, to upsell services, which we're going to talk about today, connect your guests to the local area, and ultimately one of the other things which a lot of people are talking about now, how you can turn OTA customers into future direct bookers. So people that have come through to you booking on Airbnb, of which you paid a large percentage to, and how you can then turn them into future advocates and direct bookers, saving yourself the Airbnb fee and being able to grow your own customer base. So in order to kind of look at how much adding a service layer to your glamping business, I think it's important to actually have a look at a couple of other businesses in the same space. And really, we always look back to hotels. They're the original short-term rentals. They've been around. I believe the first hotel was obviously way back in history, as you can imagine. It was development of inns, where people were travelling to certain places within a certain country, and they were able to stay at this inn. They've been around a long time. And when you look at hotels, they're actually not dissimilar to your business in some ways, in that they rent space on a short-term basis. They're heavily reliant on OTAs, so even if you're a major hotel chain, you're still taking bookings from booking.com, potentially from Airbnb. And the price per night that you're able to command is really determined by a combination of factors, but primarily by demand. And hotels like yourselves are very open to fluctuation in occupancy, which can materially affect how much money you can make from your glamping business. Well, hotel chains, however big, have exactly the same issues that you do. So I think it's quite interesting to delve into the evolution of the hotel business, because they did what we're all trying to achieve within the short-term rental business, but they did it a long time ago. So if we look at the business model, I'm just going to move myself over here. If you look at the business model of hotels and how it evolved from 1970s to the present day, it's quite interesting. So the 1970s, there's actually a lot of similarities between the short-term rental business right now and the hotel industry in the 70s. So in the 1970s, obviously Airbnb and Booking.com and all those kind of those OTAs, hotels really focused on getting a high volume of bookings. So they just wanted to focus on occupancy. They just wanted to fill the rooms and to try and get a price that they were happy with in order to fill that hotel in order to make a profit. But when you move over to the present day, and really this is with the advent of dynamic pricing, and we're obviously very used to this, and most people know that dynamic pricing was really pioneered by the airline industry, where a customer who's accessing the same service on the same day is not necessarily selling the same price. So hotels now really are focused on high profit bookings. So they're less concerned, obviously they're concerned about occupancy, but they're less concerned about trying to get 100% occupancy. What they're trying to do is make sure that each room they fill in their particular hotel generates as much profit as possible. And there's two ways to do that. First one is obviously dynamic pricing. So, if someone's booking last minute, they're probably going to pay more money than someone's booked a year out. Potentially if they book direct, or if they're a loyalty customer, they're going to get a cheaper price. But the other real advent that's happened within the hotel industry is the service layer. So, when you walk into pretty much any hotel now, whether it's a travel lodge or a 5-star hotel, they are trying to upsell you services from the second you walk in to upgrade your stay. So really, a bit like the airline industry, increasingly hotels just see the occupancy as once you're into that space, how can we then increase the profit because we now own that customer? And that could be anything from video on demand in the room, it could be restaurants, it could be gym access, it could be spas, it could be anything, airport transfers. But what they're trying to do is to get you to upgrade your stay. And if we look on the right-hand side here, you can see a breakdown of hotel revenue. This was taken from 2017, but I would imagine that the rate of change has increased. It's quite surprising. This is hotels across all of America, ranging from 1-star to 5-star. And on average, if you look at the revenue of a hotel, occupancy only represents 68% of their total revenue, which is pretty surprising when you think about it, because they are essentially renting space on a short-term basis. Food and beverage now represents 26%, which is one of their major upsells. And other operated, this includes stuff like airport transfers, it could be spas, it could be vending machines, it could be anything. But essentially, it is quite surprising. Out of all the revenues that hotel generates, only 68% now comes from occupancy. When we compare that to the average glamping site, now all of you have done, I would imagine, are very proud of the business that you've set up. You've potentially changed a farm to from traditional revenue streams to add a new revenue stream, which is predominantly occupancy. But the thing is that when you look at this now, and you compare it to hotels, which ultimately people have a choice, right? So some people will want to stay in a hotel, some people will want to stay in what we'd say a traditional Airbnb accommodation, i.e. someone's house. And other people want to stay in glamping sites. But essentially the model is this, is that if you look at short stay rental revenue, and with that I include glamping, 99% of it is still made up of occupancy revenue. Pretty much anyone in the short-term rental space, including glamping sites, are purely looking to achieve as much occupancy as they can with the highest price for that occupancy they can achieve, with very little emphasis on adding a service layer. This is a polar opposite to the hotel industry, which really are trying to combine high occupancy, but looking for better occupancy. And by that, what I mean is direct bookers and bookers they know are going to spend additional sums of money while they're staying in their property. And this is something I think that we're going to see more and more within the glamping community, and also within the short-term rental space in general. So we move on this next slide. And the reason why this is that occupancy revenue is becoming more expensive, which sounds a bit weird, but let me explain why. So basically, when you get occupancy revenue, what that essentially means is that you're obviously taking the gross sum of money from the booking. But the problem that everyone has is those bookings are coming from OTAs. So from your Airbnbs or your Booking.coms or Call Camping or Canopy and Stars, doesn't matter which one it is, all of them are taking a percentage of your gross booking value. And that's pretty, it's very expensive when it comes from the top line. But I come on to explain a little bit more than that. But I want to go on and sort of talk about how this is becoming more expensive and why this needs to change. So when you look at the rise of the glamping market, it's relatively new. But so is the short-term rental or alternative rental industry in general. But it's going to follow the same pattern of which we've seen in hotels. It's going to follow the same pattern as we've seen within sort of established vacation rental businesses. So overall, in the glamping market right now, there is a massive over-reliance on OTA bookings, right? So we all know, anyone who sat here, although you're probably trying to increase your presence online, most of your bookings, I suspect, are coming from Booking.com or Airbnb, Call Camping, or any of the other OTAs that drive bookings. This is expensive. We'll talk about what percentages those companies take in a minute. The other move that's going to happen within glamping, which hasn't happened yet, but is likely to happen because we've already seen it in the short-term rental industry, is your property management system technology charging. So what I mean by that is currently you're potentially using a PMS. It could be, say, anytime booking, it could be Super Controller, it could be a number of others. There's a lot on the market. But what we've seen with the short-term rental market, particularly in America, is those property management systems that manage all of your bookings, your guest communication, your billing, etc., used to charge in that space, i.e. the vacation rental space, a price per listing. So if you have two glamping sites, for example, you might pay £20 a month per listing. Now, the move that's happened in the short-term rental industry is that they don't charge like that anymore. What they charge is a percentage of your gross revenue, your occupancy revenue. So what you've got is a big change in that market that's happened in the short-term rental industry, of which at some point is likely to happen in the glamping industry as well, where not only do you have the top line booking, i.e. the OTA, taking a percentage of your gross revenue, you also find that the core technology that powers your business will also want a percentage as well. Hasn't happened yet, but this is a prediction I think is going to happen as this market evolves more. The next challenge that you have as well with occupancy revenue is that You're going to be paying processing fees for every booking that comes through. And you also as well, I don't know if any of you here have had a challenge with chargebacks. This is something that's a particular problem in America, but it's also starting to, we're seeing here with our UK clients, where essentially people are staying in your property and then saying to their credit card company, I didn't stay there, it's a fraudulent booking. And because the customer's bank decides, they pretty much always side with the customer, despite whatever evidence you give. So basically, that's a kind of summary of some kind of movements we're seeing in the market. But if we look at the short-term rental industry generally, only in 2012, all alternative accommodations, this is any accommodation that is not hotels, in 2012, only 35% of those bookings was via an OTA, so Booking.com or Airbnb. By the time we got to 2017, this has jumped to 75% of all non-hotel bookings come via an OTA. So 75% of every single booking, the owner of the properties that they're staying in is having to pay a percentage, which can be as high as 18%, to a company just for that booking, which is a huge sum of money of your gross booking, particularly if you're operating, you're charging under £100 per night. Second thing we talked about is the property management systems changing their model. And really, as long as you can, stick with a PMS that charges a listing fee only, because there's no reason why you should be paying a percentage of your overall occupancy revenue to a PMS. So basically, like if you look at this in sum total, is the market is moving to always take a percentage of your very, very top line. And what you want to do, of course, is own as much revenue at the top line as you can and contain your costs as it comes down the funnel. So, fair question to ask. How do I future-proof my business? Well, we see and work with, I think we're now working with nearly 1,600 different businesses within the short-term rental industry. And as I described, some of them are, big private equity-backed vacation rental businesses or service apartments, all the way down to people that have one glamping unit or one Airbnb. It doesn't really matter. We see a whole range of businesses operating in different ways. And the thing that we've realized across all of these companies is that if you add a service layer to your business, for every £1 that you generate from service revenue is pretty much worth £1.20 of occupancy revenue. And the reason why that is if you sell a service, you don't have to pay anyone any of that revenue. Your customers are in your property, you sell them something, you take that profit. You're not having to share that with Booking.com or Airbnb or your PMS or anyone else. They're your customers, you sell them something, you decide the amount you're going to charge them, and you take all of that profit, which is why you're going to have to make more money from occupancy revenue to generate the same profit. So here's the thing. When you sell a service, you pay no OTA fees. You don't have to pay away to any PMS. You also reduce your reliance on occupancy fluctuations. Now, we've all seen, obviously, through the COVID pandemic, obviously that's hugely affected occupancy. I'm not talking about that. That's something that's come out of nowhere. But in general, there's always fluctuations in occupancy. And this could be down to a huge variety of things. It could be, someone on the farm next to you has also set a glamping site up. They've suddenly decided to undercharge the same product as you. Yours might be nicer. That's obviously a personal opinion. But ultimately, they're charging a price that's less than yours, which is going to affect your occupancy. Or potentially what may happen is the OTA may change their algorithm about how high up you're shown. So probably most of you know this, but if I was to look on Airbnb and put glamping in Devon, there's a hierarchy of why certain properties show at the top and why some show down the bottom. And it's a combination of reviews, it's a combination of bookings, it's a combination of whether you turned on instant book, it's a combination of how quickly you respond in minutes. All those things affect the algorithm of who gets served at the top. Now you can work these algorithms out, well close to, and you can do a lot of research. So the tip I just gave you is that if you get an OTA potential booking and they ask a question, do you have availability? The longer you take to respond will affect that algorithm of where you're shown on there, because all the booking platforms want you to respond like that instantly, because that generates more revenue for them. So they serve those people higher. However, overnight they may decide to change that algorithm without telling you, and then you're not going to know why suddenly you're getting a lot less booking requests or indeed instant bookings, and you'll find out later on, you go, actually, when I now search Devon Glamping, I'm nowhere, I'm on the 5th page. And as we probably know, consumers, to be honest, me included, my attention span never means I'm going to go to the fifth page. So all the time you have reliance on OTAs, you are having to keep up with that algorithm, which they will not publish why you are not showing in the top. it's a challenge for a business. And I think the third thing is that you really need to follow the hotel evolution and look past volumes of booking for high quality, high profit bookings. And what I mean by that is you probably, if you spend enough time with your guests, you probably can already tell when people turn up who's like to spend money if you're selling any services and who's not. But when you move that forward, is that from the very first moment you start talking to your customers, you need to talk about how they can upgrade their stay. And this is how you can really future-proof your business. So a fair question to ask. Let me just move this up again. So what services as a glamping business can you sell, and what's it actually worth? Well, the first one that we, across our network, and this doesn't matter whether you're a glamping site or whether you're a really high-end vacation rental with loads of units, the real move that we're seeing is people are prepared to pay for convenience. So they are prepared to pay for a late checkout and an early check-in. So you can imagine, a lot of us have been there. You turn up somewhere on a holiday, you've got 2 or 3 kids, they're not very happy, they've been in the car for hours, and you realise I cannot check into this glamping site or this Airbnb until 3 p.m. But we're down there at 12 p.m, so what are we going to do? Well, what a lot of customers like me are going to do is you're going to put your hand in your pocket and be absolutely prepared to pay, on average across our network, £24 in order to check in early to that property. Now, bearing in mind, if you've already cleaned that property, that is money for nothing. And no one else, you can't book that same day. So that's money that's sitting on the table that you're able to access if you promote and offer that service. On the same boat, a lot of glamping stays typically might be Friday to Sunday. And obviously, as we all know, not a lot of people go on holiday, particularly on the Monday, particularly when the season's not right in season. So also offer a late checkout. So if your checkout is, say, 2 p.m, why not offer it at 4 p.m for an extra £10? This is money that is all profit. You cannot rent that property that day, so you might as well offer, a couple of hours for an additional £10. Also, in addition, we're seeing an increasing trend from America, and as we all know, sadly, most trends start in America and come over here. We're seeing also extended stays. So this is essentially where maybe a family have booked your glamping site for 2 nights and is coming to the end of Sunday. Why not offer them to stay an extra night and offer them a below market rate price in order to stay an additional night? So we see this a lot on our tablets, and broadly the price is about 15% below the normal market rate. But when you look at it, because you've got no bookings coming in, you haven't got to clean the property because they're already in it, it makes complete sense to offer a heavily reduced extended stay when you have a night free on the other end. The next one, it's obvious, and I'm pretty certain some of you will be doing this to some extent, is offering equipment hire. So we see everything from, for example, barbecues or further potentially like boat hire, or it could be bikes. This is a really effective way in which you can have a relatively small capital expenditure of which every stay you can heavily promote. Most people, as we know, when they turn up to glamping, there's certain things they want to do. They definitely want to have a barbecue. They want to get out and about to see the countryside. They're going to want bikes if they're there. They haven't got to carry them all the way down from London or wherever they're coming. We also see as well, and this has increased unsurprisingly as a result of COVID, is selling additional cleaning. So say someone rents a week in your high-end glamping site, why not offer a mid-stay clean? So you go in there and you clean all the surfaces down, maybe tidy up all the toys and stuff that families have. And we see an average price of $35, but obviously you can up and down that depending on where you are. And then the other thing we're seeing as well is that, how many of your guests turn up to your glamping site, which a lot of them potentially deliberately are in the middle of nowhere because that's what people want to pay for, and they're like, oh, where can I go get a bottle of wine, or where can I go in my shopping? Well, maybe you can offer pre-arrival in your email marketing. On arrival, there'll be a bottle of champagne or a bottle of beer or some food for the kids, whatever it might be. You know your market better than me. You can offer that, and again, you don't pay the PMS, you don't pay the OTA, and this is a potential to hugely increase your profit per booking. If you look down here, say you sell your glamping site for £100 a night. If you offer an early check-in for £24, that's 24% increase on that price. It's actually a bit more than that because you're paying obviously the OTA, so it'd be higher than that. And then if you can offer, the food and drink bundle, you can see how very quickly you can turn what would be a £200 booking into somewhere near £300 with not a huge amount of work. So we see this across our network. It's a growing trend, and I'm sure if you're not doing it already, you're already thinking about it. So in order to sell effectively, we talk to our customers about really understanding the customer journey, and that's the only way you're going to be able to unlock service revenue in the long term. So I think it's really important to understand, as much as we're all going to look to drive direct bookings, there is no question that everyone needs in some form or another OTA bookings. You're not going to get away from that. So if you look at the guest journey, the search and booking. So when people are looking to go, looking for a glamping site in England or in Europe, wherever you might be, they're going to look on OTAs. They might just put it into Google, but probably because they pay the highest rate to Google, they're going to be at the top, or maybe they have a big SEO team, which you're not going to have running a small glamping site. They're going to land on Cool Camping, or they're going to land on Canopy and the Stars, or they're going to land on Booking.com. So really, the OTA owns that part of the guest journey. And you can do as much as you can. I encourage you. I'm doing a speech as well later about this, about how you can change your listing into a brand. But broadly, when you first start glamping, you will be reliant on these OTAs. So you have to accept that they're going to control that relationship. They own the customer at this stage, and there's no real ability to upsell at this stage. But when we move on to the next stage, which is during their stay, these guests are in your property. You now own that customer in that space. You're not relying on anyone. You're not having to pay anyone. You now have a chance to upsell. And it's super important that you work out a way to engage that guest and promote upselling in this space. I cannot say to you more that if you don't engage your customers, I'm not saying speak to them, because obviously now post-COVID it's difficult. You maybe have to find a different way. But if you just let your guests check in, you don't really engage, you cannot really expect to upsell anything. Then you move on to that post-stay. Again, you really want reviews and recommendations on the OTAs. So once they go out of your property, you can't really market to them if you haven't got their contact details outside of the OTA to come, become direct bookers and try and drive revenue that way. All you really want to do is to leave a review, because that's really going to help your business more. So again, this slide really is just about understanding that when they're in your property, that is your chance to own your own guest, get their emails, not the OTA email they try and send you, but get their proper emails, explain some of the benefits of direct booking, upsell them services during their stay, and drive additional revenue at that point. Okay, so I guess the other question, I'll try and find somewhere I can put my face without losing off. So look, so what you've got here is you've got traditional ways to sell to your guests during their stay, and it's not easy, right? Because you're not a hotel, right? So you've got to find a way that you can effectively try and upsell without having a man on the front desk. So I'll just move this up here for now. So as we can see here, we like to call this guy Brian. He's a hotel concierge. This is how hotels do it. It's super effective. Well, pre-COVID anyways. You walk in, there's someone there who can really take care of you at the front desk, or indeed they can help you book theatre tickets. All revenue opportunities for a hotel. Now, obviously, for you in glamping, I suspect that you do or have historically used in-person check-ins and in-person recommendations, in-person upsellings, but we all kind of know, and particularly some OTAs are promoting companies now hire if they have contactless check-in, that people are going to be wary of face-to-face contacts, and this isn't going to change, certainly for next season. So really thinking you're going to sell in person while they're in your property is going to be a challenge for the foreseeable future. So you've got to start thinking of more creative ways you're going to sell. So when they're in your property, what a lot of companies try is to try and email the guest or text the guest while they're in property. It depends how big your business is. But if you have like 20 glamping sites, it's not realistic for you to try and market to them without having some sort of digital form of communication. But there is a problem, is obviously I'm on a glamping holiday. I'm possibly not going to be checking my emails, and Wi-Fi might not be amazing. Texts are very intrusive, and what you don't want is kind of a review at the end where people say, look, I've come here for relaxation. I'm just bombarded on my personal device with all these messages. But it is an option to consider. The third way, which I think, again, pre-COVID was really effective, was effectively leaving paper promotion. So, you leave a menu out, would you like to upgrade your stay? Here's some options. But the problem is people aren't going to pick a piece of paper up in this post-COVID world because, unfortunately you can't clean a piece of paper. And I think that they're going to think it's been there all season, how many people have touched it, etc. Very, very difficult now. Probably was effective, but again, you're probably going to have to rethink that. And then probably about 5 years ago, there was a big move for people suggesting that apps was the way forward. Again, challenging because, how many apps have you actually downloaded in the last couple of years? And I think it's really changed from when people just download any old app to, if if you're going to download an app, it's got to offer you long-term value. So we all use, probably Facebook, Instagram, Google Maps, etc. But am I going to download an app for a 2-day stay from a company? At this point, I don't know, because I've booked through the OTA, so I don't know about your amazing brand. Am I going to download your app? I think it's difficult, and I think you're going to spend a lot of time trying to persuade people. So, this is our solution. It's another way that you can potentially look at it. Like with our product, we give you a physical tablet that's actually installed in the unit, fully cleanable, wipe downable within your COVID policy. And what that tablet does, it's a more passive way of selling. So as you walk in, the first thing you might do is have your check-in if you want to instigate contactless check-in. But you might also have some videos on there of how do you build a fire, or how do you operate your appliances, or maybe you're going to offer some recommendations on there of places to go. So you're passively starting to engage with the guests in a medium that they have an option to engage or not. And then on there you surface things you want to sell, like late checkout or order additional food. So out of the 18,000 short stay accommodations properties we're in across glamping and Airbnbs, we get on average about 25 minutes of engagement with a tablet per stay, which is very, very high for digital products and offer you a very, very good opportunity to upsell services. As I said, the positive for it is there's no downloading apps, there's no sending emails or text to the personal device. It's instant access, it's on when you go in. And there's a personal welcome, because we integrate with your property management system, or we can manually input in our back end. So when you walk in, if I'm booking it, I'll walk in there and say, "Hi, Henry," or "Hi, Family Bennett." I'll touch it, and immediately there'll be an offer. Say, "Hey, do you want a barbecue tonight? It's £10." And you basically pay through the tablet without any face-to-face engagement. And from your side, you can sell your services, you can make money from additional guests. And the other thing we see a lot of is people selling advertising space on it. So say, for example, next to your glamping farm, there's a really nice restaurant or bar. You could say to them, "Look, I get this amount of guests per year. Do you want to pay £100 for me to advertise whatever offer you have for my guests?" We see that a lot. And really, you're in full control of what's served to your guests. And the other thing that's interesting as well, just to end on, is we also give you a real good insight into what your guests want to do. So guests also can use a tablet to search, and we don't look for individual searches, but we look for patterns of search. So if all of your guests are looking for a certain type of activity, then possibly what you could do is go to that activity and say, "Hey, look, 20% of my guests search for this. Would you like to buy a banner on my tablets in there?" And you might also get an understanding of why people are staying there as well. I've got a good anecdote for my own personal property where I rented out just on Airbnb. It's right in the centre of London, the South Bank. And actually, having left my tablet in there, what I realised was people weren't staying in my house because they wanted the culture and fun of the South Bank. A lot of people were booking it for Twickenham, because actually you can get from Waterloo to Twickenham really easily, but you can also have a proper central London experience. So I started matching my price of my Airbnb to Twickenham matches, which is something that's a bit weird, because obviously I'm in central London, Twickenham's like 15 miles away. But that's the sort of insight that you can gauge from this. So I hope you found it interesting, and good luck with selling services. If you want to find more about my product, it can help you sell. The company's YourWelcome, and it's www.yourwelcome.com. Thanks for listening.